Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to another Mark at the Mic Goes Rogue podcast. This is Mark Ca, also known as Mark at the Mic, and today finds me in Alameda, California, with a friend of mine, Dave Grcevich, a fellow parent and grandparent. As far as I'm concerned, I feel that Dave gave the most emotional speech that a father can give his daughter on the day that his daughter Allie got married. I was so moved after hearing it, I went up to Dave, introduced myself, and told him I hope that someday I can do the same for my daughter when she gets married. Well, I got the chance, and although I think I did a good job, I still feel Dave got the upper hand on me. Today, Dave is going to share his memories of growing up, his travels around the country, and his unique experiences with the hope of leaving an oral history for his grandchildren, Jack and Mia. This should be a fun one. And now my conversation with Dave Grcevich. Dave, welcome to the show.
Mark, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I've been really looking forward to this. And, you were a very well-traveled man before landing here in Alameda, California. And let me see if I can review this quickly. Minnesota, where you were born, kind of grew up a little bit, right?
That's correct.
Montana, Seattle, Lake Tahoe, California, Newport Beach, California. You went from the mountains to the beach.
Right.
And then back to Utah for college, right?
Yeah.
And then finally wound up here in Alameda.
And been here 50 years.
50 years in Alameda. Good for you. That's awesome. So we got a lot of ground to cover, Dave, and so let's get after it, okay?
Well, let's hope it's as interesting for you as it has been for me.
It's going to be fun. Great. Okay. I'm just going to start with simple, like your birthplace in Minnesota. That's the land of the lakes, right? The land of the 10,000 lakes. Is that what they call it?
You're right. 10,000 lakes. And I was born in a little town called Keewatin. Keewatin. It's Chippewa Indian, I believe.
And when you
don't know what it means.
When you say little town, what was the population?
2,000.
2,000. That is little town.
Yeah.
Good for
right.
you. Okay, so how long did you hang around that little town in Minnesota?
I hung around until I burned all bridges as far as my college beginnings went. I was a terrible student, completely not motivated to go to college at time.
And some people are like that.
I should have gone to the service, perhaps, for a couple of years, matured a little bit, and then gone to college. But I didn't, and they finally said, your transcript is so terrible that we're not going to invite you back. And now I'm like 20.
Okay, but what were some of the things you did as a youngster in the little town you grew up in? Yeah, you must have done a lot of fishing, right? Hunting, I guess, is a big deal.
Fishing and hunting was really big and really a lot of fun. And I had a nice group of guys that, when I say guys, I mean kids that I grew up with. We all loved to fish and hunt, and we did winter fishing on the ice.
Ice fishing?
Yes.
Wow.
The lakes would freeze to the depth of about a couple of feet of ice.
What would you take, like a little hacksaw or something?
Automobiles.
Really?
That ice will hold thousands.
How would you make the hole in the ice, though? How do you do that?
My grandfather made me a metal bar that you chopped holes with, and he sharpened it up. It was like a razor blade and heavy, and we would just chop away.
How thick would the ice be?
As thick as 2.5 feet, I think.
No kidding. So it took a while to chip away.
It did. But when you're 16 years old, you're strong.
And time doesn't mean anything. What kind of fish would you catch?
Well, we would angle. When I say angle, I mean with a rod and a reel of some type for walleyes. And then we would spear northern pike. You could not spear walleyes. It was against the law. I don't know why.
Northern pike, that's the fish they make gefilte fish out of, isn't it? Pike?
They do.
White pike and fish. I always see the jars of that.
They do. I think that's a Norwegian dish.
So it was very edible. The fish that you caught was very edible.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah. And then, so you would also do some hunting, I guess?
Deer hunting, duck hunting, pheasant hunting. And we had to kind of drive to different areas for different game.
Okay. So you hung out. What was the name of the city again? Give me again, your town.
Keewatin.
Keewatin. Right. So you stayed in Keewatin till about what age?
I stayed there until I made a disaster of that education. About age 20, I was on the road.
Okay. All right. So then I guess your next stop would have been Montana. Is that correct?
Well, a friend in Keewatin, a young man that was about 5 years older than me, was moving to Missoula, Montana to open a pizza.
Manzula, or did you say Missoula?
Missoula.
Missoula, Montana. Okay. To open up a pizza parlor.
It's a college town.
Okay.
And he asked me if I would enjoy riding with him because he wanted some company. He was going to be driving at night. I said, great. I loaded up a old Samsonite suitcase my mom and dad gave me.
How'd they feel about you leaving, first of all?
They encouraged it.
Okay.
They knew
They knew it was time for you to grow up a little
well.
bit. Right.
Things weren't going well for their 20-year-old son, and they made a suggestion, a good one, I may add.
Yeah. So you packed up the Samsonite, got in the car with this friend of yours.
Yes.
And off to Montana you went.
Yes.
How long were you there?
I was in Montana for about 10 days. He was staying with relatives, and his father-in-law or brother-in-law was a long-haul truck driver, and he was on the road when we got there. And he must have been doing quite well financially because they had a beautiful home and 5 or 6 bedrooms, 3 or 4 kids. It was quite a deal. Yeah. And she was very nice to me and encouraged me to stay around, and eat her cooking, and everything was a lot of fun for me. And he showed up on the scene about 8 or 10 days later, and in about 15 minutes, he had enough of me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and so he said, Dave, I think it's time you hit the road.
Leaving Montana? Leaving Montana?
I said, true, that's how that happened. And the next day or two, I had packed my suitcase, and he drove me out to the west edge of Missoula, and I got my thumb out and started hitchhiking.
Wait a minute, he took you to the outskirts of the town?
Yes.
And you put with your Samsonite in your hand?
Yes.
And you start hitchhiking?
Yes, and I had Seattle written on the side of the suitcase with some type of ink or something,
okay.
I forget.
Before we get to Seattle, because that's your next stop.
Right.
And it sounds like you were going to hitchhike the whole way.
I was.
Okay, we're going to get to that in a minute. Somewhere along the line, your nickname was Baker. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's a Keewatin name.
Okay. Why Baker? How'd that come about?
My grandmother grandmother and grandfather on my dad's side of the family baked bread, only bread.
Uh-huh.
And they'd take 30 or 40 loaves a day, and when the 30 or 40 loaves were gone for that day, and I might add, they sold like hotcakes.
Yeah, I was going to say they had a bakery itself.
They had a bakery, but only bread.
Right.
Only bread, and they needed money.
Yeah.
Extra jobs.
Sure.
That's how they did it, and they did quite well. So they were named Pete the Baker and Mr. Grandma Baker.
And then along came Baker Dave
But
Baker.
the name carried over to me.
Did it eventually go away, or does anybody still call you Baker?
They still call me Baker.
I love it.
I love it.
I love it. Okay. All right. All right. Can we get back to where your thumb is out now and you're on the road and you're heading for... Why Seattle? What made you choose Seattle?
1960 was going to be the opening of the World's Fair.
Okay.
And I talked to my dad and other people, and they say Seattle would be a good town because it's going to be busy and there'll probably be a lot of jobs available.
So let me ask you something. To do these little things, even though you were hitchhiking along the way, you had to stay. Did you have money? I mean, did you take some money with you? What did you do there?
It seemed to me I had about $50 cash.
Yeah.
You know, this was 65
that could
years
go a long
ago.
ways, right?
Yeah. And I was decent with my money. I wasn't going to waste it, you know.
How long, just because I can't get a visual here, how far of a drive is it from Montana to Seattle?
A couple of days. So
1,000 miles in, maybe a little longer?
No, I would guess, you have to go across all of Washington and through Idaho.
Oh, yeah, right. So you had rides along the way?
I did. I had different rides, and many of whom were with truckers.
Yeah.
They in those days, I guess they felt quite safe.
You probably felt okay.
I felt safe also.
I think back in those days, hitchhiking, it was fairly prevalent.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't hear a lot of goofy stories like maybe you do today. In fact, you don't even see a hitchhiker anymore.
Right.
All right. So how long did it take to get to Seattle? A couple of days or long?
A couple of days,
all right.
as I recall.
Did you know where you were going when you got to Seattle? I mean, did you have any idea where to stay?
I had
where
a
did
phone
you stay?
number,
You had
Mark.
a phone number. Okay.
My uncle gave me a phone number of a good friend of his.
Okay.
Naive Dave thought his friend is going to say, why don't you stay with me for a while? Didn't happen.
Okay.
However, he gave me some excellent advice. He told me to get downtown Seattle. He says, you can move around. There's good bus system, etc. You shouldn't have any problem. He said, go to the YMCA.
Oh, okay. All right.
He said, rooms are clean. They're really cheap. You got shower facilities. I said, thanks. His name was Bob, as I recall. I said, thank you very much, Bob.
Yeah.
So I began to navigate the streets of Seattle, and I got downtown. I think it was 9th Street someplace, and I checked in there. I got myself a room. It was really a deal.
And you're around 20, 21 years old right now?
20 years old.
Yeah.
20 years old.
Yeah. Man.
Yeah.
So you got yourself a room in Seattle.
Got myself a room, and then I hung out for a couple of days and kind of got my feet on the ground. And then I headed to the hiring offices of Boeing.
Oh, okay, great.
It's a huge
employer.
Yeah, big time. So I went there. Hell, they hired me.
No kidding.
Immediate. I mean, maybe an hour interview, and I had a job. And
it was a full-time position?
It was a full-time position.
What was the work? What kind of work was it?
Laboring type of work.
Okay.
I had no skill.
Yeah,
I
that's
was
all right.
happy to have it.
But they put you to work. That way you had income to pay for the YMCA and some spending money and all that good stuff.
Seems to me my hourly wage was $2.25 an hour.
Yeah, which is probably $20 an hour today. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or more. So good for you. All right. While you were there, so you spent most of your day, I guess, working, right? Was it a Monday through Friday type of job?
Yes, it was.
So you had the weekends open for yourself?
I had the weekends open.
Okay.
And I did have to change shifts when they wanted me to, from the day shift, which was 8 to 4 maybe, and I worked graveyard for a while.
Yeah.
I'd go in at 11.
That's a tough shift.
It is tough.
Yeah. I know they always say, "Oh, you got your days free." Well, you don't really. You have to sleep a little bit to get ready.
Absolutely.
It's a shock to the body, that's for sure. So while you're in Seattle, I guess you met a couple of friends or a couple of gentlemen, Jack Ford and Les Scolari. Did I say that correctly?
Yes.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about Jack and Les?
Okay. I don't know which one I met first, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Jack Ford was from Pittsburgh, and there were a lot of people from Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, workers I'm talking about. They were all skilled workers.
So you met them, they were at Boeing? Is that how you met them?
They worked at Boeing, but they lived at the YMCA.
Oh, no kidding. Okay.
Their families were back wherever they were from.
So were they around 20 years old too, or a little bit older?
They were my dad's age.
You're kidding.
I was like a son to them.
Right. So you hit it off with them?
And there was at least 6 or 8 of them. I had like 8 dads. These guys looked after this young, naive boy like you couldn't. They were awfully nice to me.
But Jack and Les had a little bit more of an effect on you, I guess?
Yeah, I was closer to those two.
Right.
Jack liked me so much he wanted me to marry his daughter. Can you believe that?
Had you ever met her? I mean, he must have showed pictures of her.
Nothing about her. He just thought I was cool, I guess.
His daughter. And she's back in Pittsburgh, I guess?
She's in Pittsburgh, and she was going to college.
Yeah.
It's Dave, you're going to love her.
Yeah.
You know, like it's a done deal.
Yeah, not really, right? Not ready for that.
I couldn't.
That's funny. Okay. All right. What about Les? What do you remember about him?
Les was like a tough guy from San Francisco.
Really?
And he was headed to Seattle. To Alaska.
Okay.
And it was a stayover for him at the YMCA. Until he decided to make that move.
Was he working at Boeing also at that time? No, he was just staying.
He didn't work, and he kind of puzzled me.
Yeah.
His lifestyle. He was younger than Jack Ford, but he was 10 years older than me, and he had much more experience, but I don't know where he got his money or anything like that. It didn't matter. He was cool, and I got along with him.
But these fellas kind of befriended you and mentored you, I guess, a little bit.
He mentored me a lot.
Yeah.
And one day he just said to me, "Dave, you don't belong in Seattle." I said, "Oh, well, where do I belong, Les?" "You belong in Lake Tahoe."
Aha. Okay, so before we get there, how long had you been living in Seattle before this opportunity to move on to Lake Tahoe came up?
I'm going to say 4 months.
So it's just a short stay.
Very short.
Wow. So that's in a sense, that's pretty fortunate that you were able to hook on with Boeing, hang around for 4 months. I guess make up a little.
I was employed all the time.
Yeah, make a little bit of bankroll, and then. Was it Les or Jack that said move to Tahoe? Which one said that?
No, Les wanted me to go to Tahoe. Jack wanted me to go
marry
to Pittsburgh.
Marry his daughter. So he gives you the recommendation, go to Lake Tahoe. Did you even know about Lake Tahoe? Had you ever even heard of it?
Never heard of it.
Okay.
Never heard of it. I said, well, what do I have to... He described it.
Yeah.
I said right away, that sounds like possibility.
Yeah. Did he say what kind of work you might find there if you go there?
He told me all he knew about the gambling industry.
Okay, great.
And he said there's a huge club there called Harris.
Yep.
He says, send him a letter, tell him you're interested. I said, can you help me to write this letter and put it together? He says, let's go up to my room. We went up there. He constructed the letter for me. I signed it, basically. We mailed it.
And you hadn't been to Tahoe yet, so you really didn't know what was going on as far as this big casino.
Nothing.
Right. Okay, so you mail off the letter to Harrah's, I guess. Is that what it was? Right. Okay, what happens next?
Nothing for a week. finally, here comes a letter from Harris. I said, oh, I got very excited.
Yeah.
I said, what a fast reply, you know. So I opened the letter, and they said in there, we understand you're interested, blah, blah, blah. They went on and on. They said, we would be interested in you. However, we have to have an interview, and we have to give you a battery of math tests.
Right. And at this time, were you still around 20 years old, or had you...
20 years old.
Okay,
yeah,
all right.
20 years old.
That's important to remember that, right?
Right.
Okay, all right. So what happens now? You go to Tahoe and go to Harris for these or did you have to go some other city to take the testing?
No, I went to Reno.
Oh, to Reno. Okay.
Yeah, I made reservations on a Greyhound. I made reservations when I got off graveyard shift on at Boeing. I hopped on the Greyhound bus. I slept all night. In the morning, Lord and behold, I'm in Reno, Nevada. My eyes were like grapefruits.
Yeah,
I'd never seen anything like that. The lights.
All lit up, right?
The casino, people gambling. I said, what is this? I couldn't believe it. You know, it was really appealing to me.
Yeah. The eyes were very bright, weren't they? It
was fantastic.
Okay, so take me from there. Then you go for the testing, I guess.
I go to their employment office, and I think it was a fairly young lady, 30-ish, and she was going to give me these tests that they told me about, and so I took the test, and the entire afternoon, as I recall, only took maybe an hour and a half to finish the test, and she said, these things will be scored, and we shall be in touch with you, David, and it was nice meeting you, and that was the end of it.
Right, but here you are in Reno, 20 years old, basically know nothing about gambling, right? About craps, about 21, blackjack, whatever they call it, right? Nothing. Okay, so do you stay in Reno at that time, or do you go to Tahoe, or do you stay in Reno to get the results? What happens?
I stayed for 2 nights in Reno. The results, I was told, were going to take about 5 days to be completely scored and whatnot. So I went back to Seattle and went to work Monday morning. I was at work with at Boeing's again.
Right. So you had not told Boeing you're leaving yet.
Oh no.
Right. You kept the job. I got it. That's very interesting. Good for you. Yeah. So how long did that last before you got the word that you got the job? I guess
2 weeks later, I received another letter from Harris. My heart started pounding. I says, "Oh man." I opened that thing, and it said, David, congratulations, you're now an employee of Harris.
Wow.
That was it.
How cool.
That was the beginning of my Nevada experience into the gambling.
So you get the letter, it's good news and all that. So you say to Boeing, I'm leaving in 2 days, 2 weeks, today.
I gave them a couple of weeks notice
good for
because somebody told me I should.
Good for you. You left on good terms that way. You don't burn a bridge.
Right.
Okay, so now you head for Tahoe, or do you go back to Reno to get an assignment? How did that work out?
I went to Reno, and then I caught a Greyhound out of Reno to Tahoe because they told me I was going to be based in Tahoe.
Yeah.
And I found out later that was another blessing. You know, going to Lake Tahoe.
Oh, it's gorgeous, right?
Yeah.
But you didn't know that at that time, right?
I did
had no
not
idea.
know anything, no.
Right.
I just was going with the flow.
Okay, so that you show up, I guess. How does the process work? You show up at Harrah's and say, I'm here to go to work. Do I have to go to... What happened?
Well, I get up there and I go to the casino, and I find out that I'm a couple of days too young. Not a couple of days, 2 or 3 weeks too
Right.
young.
Because I said earlier, you're 20, and I think you have to be 21 to deal, don't you?
Yeah.
To work in a casino.
Yes,
Okay.
you do. And
What happened next?
They wouldn't train a 20-year-old.
No, they're not going to.
They're not
Right.
going to do that.
Right.
So I met a fella that had a last name that ended like mine in VICH. And whenever we run into people of our persuasion, we tend to become friends because
Immediately.
there's not that many.
Right,
It's
immediate
kind of like
friends.
Italians meeting
Absolutely.
a paisan.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this guy says, I know this sheriff personally. He says, let me talk to him.
Let me talk to the sheriff.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. See if we can do anything, And the sheriff is about in Tahoe, and he's in and out of these casinos.
Right.
And he's walking around, and he's got this 10-gallon hat,
Yep.
the big badge, and 2 6-shooters.
Two 6-shooters.
2 6-shooters, one on each hip.
Right.
And his name was George Byers.
Wow.
I never forgot him.
Yeah.
He introduced me. He said something, Dave, I'm going to be in the office tomorrow. And he said, you can inquire around. You'll find out where the office is. It was almost walking distance from the casino.
Right.
Be there about 9 o'clock and then we'll talk. I said, okay, George, nice meeting you, blah, blah, blah. The next morning, I barely slept all night long. I was so excited, I'll tell you. I got down to George's office. He says, you got to have this sheriff's card, Dave. He said, what it is, basically, it says that you're not a felon, you're a good guy, you have no records. Everything is cool with your history. I said, I've never been in trouble, George, And so he got it and he put it in. He put this card that looked like a driver's license made out of cardboard, though, and he put it in this old Corona typewriter.
Yeah,
the old one.
I know the one.
He turned it and got it lined up where he wanted it, and he started. How do you spell that last name? And he was hunting and what we used to call hunting and pecking. He worked with 2 index fingers.
Yeah.
That was his.
That is old school.
That's how he worked.
Yep.
So he took the information he wanted and he came to birthday. I said, George, I'm not 20 yet. I was born in 1940. He said, Dave, you mean 39, don't you? I said, George, absolutely I mean 39. I picked up on that real fast.
Oh, that's funny.
And he hit 39.
And boom.
Yeah. And gave me the card. You're all set. Go back up to Harvey's. Go into
Get to work.
Personnel, and they'll do whatever they do. Schedule you.
That is great. All because of your friend that you met. You guys have the same last, the CHECK, whatever it is, right?
Right.
That is crazy. Great story.
His name was Joe Grcevich. He became a personal friend until he passed not too many years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so now you're at Harrah's. I guess you were at Harrah's, right?
Harrah's,
okay.
They were the only casino that trained young new people.
Right, as blackjack.
At that time.
Blackjack dealers. Is that how you start out? Or
I started out as a crap dealer.
Wow, that's got a lot of action, huh?
Yeah, there was a lot of action, and there was quite a bit of learning to do.
Oh, gotta be.
And we were getting a cram lesson. I mean, they hustled up and
especially for somebody that came from a background where you never were in a casino or never gambled. It's tougher to pick up.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so can you tell me about a couple of more people along the way, I guess, while you were in Tahoe? There was Whitey Bob Summers. You laugh.
And this guy was
Sharky Bevovich. Is that
one of my another countryman?
VICH, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, what can you tell us about Whitey and Bob, Sharky, I guess? Yeah.
Well, actually, this fella, Whitey Bob Sumner, was like I would think a 60-year-old. Now, here I am 20.
Yeah.
He's 60, and I'm not the only trainee around. We are naive and wet behind the ears.
Yeah.
We've been to 2 or 3 weeks of classes, which tells us we know nothing about gambling. But they have several pit bosses, and they run the casinos for the ownership and the business, and they almost have a pit boss for every student. Not quite that, but almost.
Yeah.
And they watch you very, very closely because they know you're going to make mistakes.
Right.
You know.
And mistakes cost the casino money.
Exactly.
So they got to minimize those mistakes, get them down to no mistakes if they can.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And that's how that works. Well, Whitey liked me.
Whitey was a pit boss.
Yeah.
Okay.
Whitey Bob Sumner liked me. I'm on a break one day. On a break, I'd walk across the street to Harvey's. And when nobody was looking, I'd have a drink. You weren't supposed to, but I don't know. I just did it. I did it. You know.
Yeah.
Only one.
Right, only one.
On a 20-minute break.
Yeah, have a little break.
Exactly. So Whitey says, "Hey, kid," he always called me kid. "Hey, kid, you want to make $20? I mean, an extra 20 wouldn't hurt."
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
Wouldn't hurt at all. So I said, I'd like to make an extra 20, Bob. He says, all right, I'll tell you. He said, we're going to sit down over there at that 21 table. You're going to buy in, get 20 silver. He says, make a $2 or $3 bet, order a drink. I said, okay. That's all I have to do. He says, when I look at you and wink, he said, knock that drink over. I was a little puzzled by the whole thing.
So.
But naive to what the hell's going on. Just completely naive. So I sit down, I play a couple of bucks, I lose, I play a couple of bucks, I win, I play a couple. This goes on 5 or 6 hands. Finally, I kind of glance over at Whitey, and he gives me the wink. And I just tapped the bourbon and water.
Onto the table there.
It goes over. There's a traffic jam all of a sudden. A pit boss comes running. He's got a cocktail girl. She brings a paper towel.
Yeah.
She's blotting up. They don't want the cards and everything to be ruined. They have to bring out a new deck of cards. So they go like this. They get everything settled down again. I happen to glance over. Whitey was playing $20 and $30 a hand. I look over, he's got 200 out there in the circle now. So that's what his game was.
Really?
Yeah. He just pressed the 20 to 200 during the confusion.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a good story.
I didn't realize how smooth he was. Maybe for 5 years.
So were you done playing after you spilled the drink and he was just up there? Did you continue to play?
I had to go back to work.
Right, but he gave you the $20. You made your 20.
Yeah, gave me the 20.
Did that ever happen again?
Never.
Never.
I wasn't going for it. I realized That wasn't what
Right.
I
You
should
didn't want to
be
get
doing.
involved in that.
I was not into that.
That was Whitey. Okay.
But that's how he worked. I found out later that Whitey had a terrible reputation, had worked for probably
Everybody.
in the state.
Yeah.
And that sooner or later,
It get caught.
he got caught.
Right, you get
doing
caught.
that.
Yeah, absolutely. His name, instead of Whitey, should have been Sharky. So now tell me a little bit about Sharky.
Sharky he's from the gold country, his family. In fact, his brother was a state representative in that part of Ione.
Oh, yeah, right.
Up in that area.
Jackson,
That
Ione, all of
family's-
that.
they're
Murphy's,
very
I guess.
well
yeah.
known there.
Okay.
And Sharky was a gambler.
Yeah.
He was a pit boss, and he was very good, but he had an issue with gambling.
He had the addiction, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Instead of drinking, he was gambling.
Yeah, and he was at Harris also? Is that
He
how you
was
met him?
working at Harris.
As a
he
pit
was
boss.
He had a great reputation. He was very, very well thought of.
Yeah.
And
Was he around 50, 60 years old also, like Whitey? Or?
yes, he was.
Yeah.
Yes, he was.
All right, so tell me about Sharky.
Sharky bought a casino.
He bought a casino in
He bought
Tahoe?
in Gardnerville.
Where's that? Up north?
Down the hill.
Down the hill.
Down the hill, headed toward Carson City.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, that's where it is. Maybe 15 miles west of Gardnerville.
So he'd been working as a pit boss at Harris,
For all his life.
had a ton of money, or got some money or whatever
When
to buy
he,
a casino.
He had money, and when he went cold gambling, he lost his money.
Yeah.
But this one time, I guess he had a nice score and got into he got into the casino business. He had some pull, so he got registered and licensed. You have to go through quite a
I
bit
bet. Yeah.
to get ownership.
So whatever became of Sharky?
Sharky ran that casino for several years, and he passed.
Yeah. Did you ever go down there?
Oh, I was there, and he served prime ribs 2 inches thick, and I think they were $4.75.
That's crazy. So you'd been down to his casino.
Several times.
Yeah.
Several times.
Hey, by the way, when you were in Tahoe, where were you living? Where did you live?
Different places. Once I got established, I lived with other guys.
Right. Other employees of Harris?
Other dealers.
Yeah.
And they were rookies just like me.
So you guys would have an apartment or something like that?
We'd get the biggest place we could, and
Yeah.
we'd get 4 or 5 roommates, and we split it 4 or 5 ways, and
Yeah.
we could exist and live quite well.
How long were you in Tahoe? Several years, few years?
On and off for probably 20 years.
On and off.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
I would come and go, and I'd go to school, and I'd come
Yeah.
summer vacation. I'd go back and work.
because you worked in a casino, you worked at Harris, and Harris had a lot of shows, right? Celebs would come in.
Best entertainers in the world.
Yeah.
At the time.
When you were working the tables, did you ever get a chance to meet any of those guys? Would they come in gambling? Different folks, like I think in your notes you mentioned somebody, Nat King Cole, Waylon Jennings, Louis Primo. Were they all gamblers at one time or another?
Not all of them were gamblers. I'll tell you, one of the worst gamblers was, oh gosh, he slips me. He was a child star, Mickey Rooney. Terrible temper, poor loser.
So when you met,
cussing you out.
when you were at the table, was he at the craps table, or was
Yeah.
it really?
He would-
Really? So he was a hothead, huh?
Oh, he was terrible.
Wow.
If he wasn't a star and employed at Harris, they would have thrown him out.
Tossed him out, huh?
Exactly. He was terrible.
Yeah.
And Nat King Cole was just a gentleman. In fact, Nat King Cole told me he was gambling at my table. He was winning, Not a whole lot because he wasn't betting a whole lot, but he was winning. He leaned over to my ear. He said, "David, this is the most fun I have since I quit smoking weed." we both had a good laugh.
What, are you not going to laugh? It's funny. Did you know it was Nat King Cole at that time?
I did.
Yeah.
I did. He was seen around the casino often.
Yeah.
Just walking around.
And you had up a pretty good relationship with him.
He saw my name, David. That's the only reason he knew it.
Right.
But I knew who he was.
Yeah.
And he was a nice gentleman.
Yeah.
Nice gentleman.
Did any of the pit bosses ever say anything to you about your relationship with Nat King Cole or anything like that?
No.
Okay.
I don't even know if they noticed.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. What about Waylon Jennings? Was he a gambler as well?
Waylon Jennings came up to my table when I was working at Harvey's across the street much, much later.
Okay.
And Waylon was the only, I was dealing 21 that night, and Waylon was the only player on my game.
What time was it?
It was probably 3 or 4 in the
So
morning.
it's pretty early morning.
Yes.
So was he finished? He must have been finishing a show, I guess, maybe.
He
huh?
had finished his evening,
Yeah.
and he was over. He was doing whatever he does.
Right.
And he was gambling. And every bet he made, he made some substantial size bets. He would bet $25 for me.
Really?
Yeah. Every single bet he made. $25 for Dave.
Wow.
25. You think I could win a bet?
No.
I beat him. I beat him. I beat him. He said, "David, don't you know I'm leaving?" We got to laugh. Don't you know I'm tipping you?
Wow.
I said, "Well, and I'm trying my best, but it just went bad for him."
Yeah.
And me.
Yeah. Wow. So he didn't come with a lady friend or anything, huh? He just came by himself?
Came by himself. Now I get a break. He leaves. After a while, he got tired of me beating him up.
Right.
He leaves. I don't know where he went. A different table,
Yeah.
I guess. Now I get a push, a break. I go into the men's room.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be darned. Here's Waylon in there snorting cocaine.
Oh, you're kidding.
Yeah.
You're kidding.
That's why he was probably hanging out.
Yeah.
He couldn't sleep.
Yeah.
I pretended I didn't know him,
Yeah.
and he didn't say anything
And
to
you
me
just
at
do your
this
thing
point
and move
in time.
on. Right. That's great.
Our relationship was finished.
Yeah. Oh. What about Louis Prima? Tell me a little bit about Louis Prima.
I'll tell you a good one about. He's one of my favorite entertainers.
And for a lot of folks that may not even know who Louis Prima was, he had a great band. Wasn't it a wonderful band?
Yes, he had a band, and they were called.
Yeah, I can't think of it either.
I can't. Yeah.
But he played trumpet. Did he play a horn?
He played great trumpet.
Yeah.
But he was more of like a character
Yeah,
out there.
he was a
would
real entertainer.
sing
Yeah,
and,
yeah. Dance a little
dance
bit. Yeah.
all over the
Yeah.
place. He had Keely Smith, his first wife, with him, and then he had another lady, his second or third wife.
Yeah.
And he went through a lot of women in his time.
Yeah. Okay, so
One
that
day-
gives everybody a little background on Louis Prima.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
One day I'm driving to work. I'm working at Harrah's. I drive past the country club golf course in South Shore by the Oakland or by the South Shore Airport in that vicinity. And I see a man ahead of me, and he's hitchhiking. Now, that's not uncommon.
Right.
I get close. I said, "That's Louis Prima hitchhiking."
Why is he hitchhiking?
I pull over.
Great.
I'm going to Harris Club. He's hitchhiking. He's working at Harris Club. I pull over. He said, "I'm playing golf, And the guy, I had the rehearsal, and the guys I was playing with said, Louis, we'll quit and drive you to work. He said, don't you dare quit. Just, I'll go out here and I'll catch a ride.
I'll catch a ride.
He's doing this.
That is funny. So you picked him up.
I picked him up and drove him to work. I was working in the same casino.
That's funny, man. That's great.
Yeah.
Oh, boy. All right. What about the great Judy Garland? What kind of story can you share with me about Judy?
Judy Garland is wandering through the casino, and I'm on a break, and I was a smoker at the time, and she has a cigarette in her mouth, and she says, do you have a light? That's about how she said it. Do
Not
you have
please,
a light?
or can I have?
I said, yes, and they had a book of matches. I lit the match. I lit Judy's cigarette. She didn't say hi, goodbye, or anything. She just kind of looked over my shoulder to see if anybody was noticing her or if there was anybody she knew. And I thought, there's a famous person, and why do they have to act like that?
And probably most were not like that, right?
Most were not.
Yeah.
Most were not.
Okay. Thanks for sharing some of those stories. I got a couple of more names I'm going to bring up here. Casinos sometimes have that, they're sometimes affiliated with the mob. Not all casinos, some is rumored, some is whatever. But who are these two fellas, Tommy Bruno and Tricky Dicky? Tommy Bruno and Tricky Dicky, who were they?
I had a golf tournament that I held in June for many years, 30 years, I believe. And I was at one of my golf tournaments, and I noticed these two gentlemen, and they were just very unique looking. And they were I was there for a week with my tournament, and they were there 3 or 4 days. They were playing poker. They were playing slot machines. And one day I was sitting at a table around the bar with some of the guys in my tournament, and Lord and behold, here these two guys are up at the bar. So I said to one of the guys that I'm going to go up and say hello to these fellas and introduce myself and say hello and tell them how neat they look. You know, I'd seen them around. Dave, I was told, leave them alone, dude. Don't bother them. I said, the man was Ralph Berger in my golf tournament that was telling me to leave them alone. I said, why? What do you mean leave them alone, Ralph? He said, these guys, they don't want to be bothered. I said, I'm only going to say hello and introduce myself. Dave, leave them alone. Believe me. Well, Ralph was a retired 35-year prison guard in the state of Arizona, so he knew what he was talking about. He told me they were packing, and if you don't know what that means, it means that they're carrying guns, pistols.
Yeah.
And I said, how do you know that? He said, I've been around a long time, Dave. Believe me, they're packing.
They're packing.
I said, I don't care. I'm going up and say hello. So I went up to them, and I said hello to them, and we shook hands. Tommy Bruno told me with a very deep voice, Dave, it would be my pleasure. I thought I was meeting John Gotti or something. So anyhow, we talked for a while. We exchanged drinks, and I went on my way.
I got to know, how did he introduce his friend Tricky Dicky? He says, this is my friend Tricky Dicky?
Exactly. That's exactly how he left it. And Tricky didn't do much more than give me a nod.
Just
he
look,
was
right?
not very
that's
talkative.
great. Okay. And did you ever have any other time you would have a relationship with these guys? Did you ever see them again?
Never again. I saw them around, and I would, how you doing? And they might wave back, but that was the
So what do you think? They were in town just to have a little fun, or they were in town for
they
business?
Lived in Monterey.
Okay.
I mean, I had to
Came up for a little time off.
That's what it sounded like.
Okay. Oh, my God, it's funny. Oh, boy. All right. So now you're in Tahoe. Things are going pretty good, it sounds like, right? You got a good, solid job and all that. But now you're in the mountains and you go to the beach, Newport Beach, Southern California. What brought on that? Tell us a little bit about that journey.
I was growing up a little bit, and By
now, are you 21 or 22 or 23?
Yeah, I'm 22.
Okay.
Maybe even 23.
Okay, great.
A couple of years goes by. I decided I wanted to pursue college again. And the only way I was going to be able to do that was to go to junior college, do well, and then I might be on my way again to a 4-year institution.
Just transfer, correct, yeah.
I got to talking to a pit boss at Harris Club, and his name was Ray Bruner. He was an E9 gunnery sergeant, E9 in the Marine Corps, and he was in Korea.
Yeah.
And he was a rough, tough customer.
I bet.
But he had a wealth of knowledge, and he took a liking to me, and I liked him a lot, too. I had a lot of respect for him. And he said, why don't you get out of this snow in the winter? Go around to Newport Beach. He says, there's a junior college in Costa Mesa called Orange Coast.
Orange Coast College. Yeah.
He said, why don't you contact them, register there. They'll take you because it's a junior college. They don't reject anybody. And you'll be on your way. And he says, oh, there's all these beautiful girls. You got the beaches in Southern California. So he pumped me all up. I'll be darned. Next thing I know, I'm walking around Orange Coast campus.
How did you get from Newport down to? Did you take a Greyhound bus all the way down, or did you have a car by then, or what? Do you remember?
I'm trying to remember how I actually made the trip.
Yeah,
I think I went down with a kid who lived in around Santa Anita. He was a horse.
All right, so a
player.
Southern California guy took you down.
I got to Orange, to Costa Mesa.
Yeah,
I registered. I walked around it. There, I walked to school. It was about 3 or 4 blocks, but that's not a big deal when you're young.
Yeah.
And I did okay there.
So did you do 2 years there then, or what?
I did not do 2 years. I did maybe 3 semesters, possibly.
Okay.
And I got, let's put it this way, I didn't set it afire, but I was getting better than a 2-point average, which C's weren't going to hurt me.
You're 22 or 23 now. You're more mature. Yes. You're there for a reason. Yes. So you hung there for maybe a semester and a half. Were you still going back to Tahoe?
I had a Mormon girlfriend at the time, and she was rather insistent that I get back in college.
Okay.
So Ray Bruner helping me to get to Orange Coast. This girl insisting I get to college.
Is this a girl that you met down there then at Orange Coast?
I met her working at Harris. Okay. She was a dealer also.
Okay.
And she was from Logan, Utah.
Oh, gosh.
So now I've had 3 good...
She's a Mormon and she's gambling? I thought it didn't matter.
There's other stuff they do, too.
Okay. Okay. All right. So you're coming back up to Tahoe. Were you going back and forth a little bit, or what?
Well, yeah, I'd do a semester, maybe a year at Orange Coast, and then I'd go back up to the hill, and I always made sure I didn't burn any bridges.
Yeah.
I would get hired. Guys would love to hire me.
Yeah.
So I could get a job anytime. And that worked for me.
Absolutely.
For 20 years.
Yeah. Okay. So while you're in Tahoe, you meet not the Mormon lady, but you meet another lady, don't you?
Yeah.
Would that be Marlene?
That was Marlene. I met her in Tahoe, and then with one of my, and then it was just a meeting. I didn't know where she went or anything.
Well, she wasn't affiliated with the casinos or anything like that. She was just living in Tahoe.
She was up with, I think, some sorority sisters, and they were up on a little weekend bivouac of some type.
Right.
And so I went to Orange Coast again, and by then I had moved my headquarters to Newport, which was cooler than Costa Mesa.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
So now I'm living in Newport
and
driving to Orange Coast, which might be 4 or 5 miles.
Yeah, it wasn't that far. Right.
And I run into my only wife, Marlene Ca. She's teaching school in Southern California, and she's living in Newport. And then we started dating. We had met previously, but it was only an intro and nothing more.
And that was it. And then you meet again?
No, I'm going to junior college. She's teaching school in Garden Grove.
I mean, that is really, I don't know, coincidental or something like that?
Yeah, I guess it was kind of meant to be, you know.
And were you guys around the same age, more or less, at that time? I mean, she was 22, 23, 24?
Except she was a college graduate.
Yeah, I know. Wow. Where'd she go to school?
San Jose.
Nice, great, okay. All right, so now let's make sure I'm on the right track here.
Yeah.
You're in Newport Beach. You meet Marlene. She's teaching. Elementary school or high school?
She's teaching elementary.
Okay. Oh, in Garden Grove.
Gardner Grove.
Right. Got it. You date for a while.
We date for a while, and then we make marriage plans, and that keeps moving in the right direction, and finally we decide to get married. I'm still a student.
You're
at
still
Orange
a student.
Coast at that time.
Yeah. So you got married while you were a student.
Right.
You got married here in Alameda.
We got married right here at St. Philip Neri in Alameda.
So was she from Alameda originally?
She is.
Okay.
She's from Alameda.
All right. Now it's all starting to make a little sense to me. Okay.
Right.
All right. So now we go back down to Newport. You're married. You're with Marlene. She's still teaching. What happens next? Is that when you decide you're going to transfer?
Once we got married, I transferred all of these grades from Orange Coast that were good grades. I was going to transfer them to Utah.
Right. Why Utah?
I was having trouble finding a school that wanted to take a chance on me.
Okay.
So I have to jump back.
That's okay. Go back. That's fine.
I forgot a step here.
Yeah.
The Mormon girl I met was a personal friend of the secretary of the Alumni Association at Utah State, a local Logan, Utah kid all his life, knew everybody, had all these connections.
Yeah.
He said, well, geez, I think I can get him in here, Nadine, to the Mormon girl. So she said, what do we have to do? We got to get a transcript up here. And he says, we'll get the transcript. I will hand carry it to, I've forgotten the president's name.
That's okay.
He was tight as a thief with the president of Utah State.
Yeah.
He brings the transcript. They have I don't know if they had a drink, but they sat down and they're talking. The president of the university looks at Dave Grcevich's transcript and he whistles. Wow, this guy really did a lot of messing up. He said, well, everything is terrible here. He says, except this last three or four semesters.
Right, when you finally got to Orange Coast.
He said, I can take a chance
Yeah.
just on this. I'll recommend him. We'll put him in. But the secretary of the Alumni Association was named Swede Larson. He said, Swede, you tell David that he cannot go below 2.0 or he's gone. He doesn't get another chance.
Right.
He cannot go between 2.0. So I was tickled to death to get in. Marlene and I get married. We head to Utah. We get
So wait a minute. She quit her job teaching in Garden Grove then to do that?
She did.
Wow.
Yeah,
to
she
take a
did.
chance here.
To go with me, and
Yeah.
she got a job in right across the border in Idaho.
Teaching?
Teaching.
Wonderful.
While we were married, while we had just gotten married.
Yeah, and living in Utah.
In Logan.
In Logan, Utah.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Terrific.
And the rest is pretty much
well, wait a
history.
minute. It's not. Okay.
Yeah.
Were you at Utah for 2 years or 3 years?
I was there till I graduated.
Was that a couple of years at least?
Yeah, it was 2 years for sure.
Okay. While you were there, though, there's a kind of a fun fact. You were student manager of the football team.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's pretty cool.
I made friends with the head football coach.
Yeah.
And I can't remember
So,
where
it's a long time ago, Dave.
Yes. And he liked me, and he said, Dave, he said, I want to talk to you about something.
Wow. Okay.
I said, okay, Tony, what's up? He said, you know, I need they had about 6 managers.
Yeah.
He said, I have one opening for a manager. He said, you don't have to do much. Throw a few dummies out and then lock them up
Right.
at night.
Uh-huh.
Stuff like that. He said, and I can give you tuition, books, $25 a month.
Wow.
It was a
Oh, my gosh.
It was a
scholarship. That's terrific.
I said, really? I said, I'll take it.
Yeah.
So I took it, and I did that with him for 2 years. And I took care of my tuition and my books.
Yeah. And you went to all the games.
Right on the sideline.
Terrific.
One day we were playing BYU.
Yeah.
And it was like the last play of the game, and this BYU guy threw a down and out pattern.
Yeah.
And it was too high for the receiver.
Right.
I used to be a pretty good player.
I love it.
One-handed. I went like this. Plunk. The ball went in with Utah State's balls, and I took it when I left the field house.
Oh, good for you, man. Nice little souvenir, right?
It was a souvenir.
That's terrific. So what year did you graduate from Utah?
67.
67.
Yeah. Then I came down here and went to work in Hayward, 67.
Okay, so you came back to Alameda.
Came back to
After
Alameda.
Utah. You and Marlene.
And Marlene went to work in Alameda. Alameda offered me a job, but I didn't want. It was a science teacher. I didn't want to teach science.
But you did end up teaching.
I did in Hayward.
Was that right out of Utah? You became a teacher?
Yep.
No kidding.
Yeah. And I stayed there forever.
What a
I
big
never
break
left.
that was.
I never left.
How many years teaching?
35.
35 years teaching. Yeah. What year did you retire?
1960.
No, you didn't retire in 1960.
Oh, excuse me. Excuse me.
I had to fix that one.
2000.
2000. So you've been retired 24 years?
Yeah, I have.
Amazing.
They're getting tired of paying me that.
Oh, you're beating the system.
Yeah.
You're going to beat the system.
Yeah.
What did you teach? What grade level?
I was a coach, a junior high school coach and PE teacher.
Wow. My brother did the same thing.
Did he?
Yeah.
Oh.
That's crazy. That's good.
Yeah.
But that was your whole time?
No, 15 years. And then I transferred to California has what they call continuation.
Oh, yeah. I know them well. Uh-huh.
And I got into that.
Was that a more pay situation? Is that why you did?
Same pay, more laughs.
Oh, okay.
It was more fun than
really
you could imagine.
But were the kids okay? Usually when they're a continuation.
They were okay to me.
Okay, good.
They could go off once in a while,
yeah.
But I'd just tell them, same to you,
yeah.
And that was the end.
Yeah, wow. Okay, Dave, I've got time for a couple of more questions for you. Have we covered everything? I think we have, but I don't want to leave out anything. This is for the grandkids, me and Jack, right? And this is legacy, man. This is what it's about. Big Bob. I have a couple of more minutes here. Actually, we have all the time we want, Dave, actually. But why don't you tell us the story of Tower of Power, the great rock and roll group from the Bay Area?
Oh, yeah. My brother wanted to give me a birthday present one year, so he took me to Tower of Power. They were performing at the Paramount Theater on Broadway in Oakland. So we get to our seats, and we're sitting next to an Afro gentleman who's clad in this beautiful leather outfit, 3/4 leather length coat and a big leather hat. I know he had to have $1,000 worth of leather on his body. And he's kind of a friendly guy. So I started making conversation with him. And the next thing, he reaches into his interior pocket, and he's got a bottle of bourbon or some liquor.
Right.
And he offers me a drink. My brother, donuts.
Well, I'm sorry, what? Your brother who?
Oh, my brother happens to have the nickname Donuts.
You're baker. You're baker. He's Donuts.
And it's a family thing.
Okay.
He's Donuts. I'm baker.
That's funny.
We're still that way.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. So
this guy offers you a drink.
He offers me a drink, and we kind of became acquaintances,
right.
Sitting next to
friendly.
One another watching Tower of Power. And somehow as I'm talking to him, he tells me how he just got out of the slammer yesterday or the day before.
Wow.
And he got that leather outfit, and I was complimenting him, telling him how sharp he looked.
Yeah.
Thank you, man. Thank you, man. Yeah. And he had this big afro underneath this nice leather hat. And I started asking a few questions. And Lord and behold, he tells me that he just got out of the slammer a couple of days ago. I said, really? How long were you in? He said, 35 years.
35 years. Wow. Yeah. My gosh.
I said, 35 years? I said, what in the world could you have done? They locked you up for 35 years. He was grooving to the music, and he wasn't even paying much attention. He just looked over at me and said, double homicide. That was the end of that conversation.
Yeah, that was when you say, okay, we're just going to listen to the Tower of Power here, right? Oh, my gosh. Double homicide. Man.
Oh, boy.
All right, Dave, you've had an amazing career, traveling and the experiences. And if you had a chance to do it over again, would you do anything differently?
Probably not.
Yeah.
I was always a guy that was looking for fun and laughs, and I was not serious about having good work ethic until I realized that I
came later.
Had to get it going.
Yeah.
It
was always there. You just had to.
Yeah.
It was always there. I'm blown away, I think, mostly, well, they're all great stories, but the hitchhiking time from Montana to Seattle,
yes,
that's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
It's unheard of today.
That was the beginning of it.
Yeah, that's unheard of today.
Yeah.
All right, how about, do you have a few closing words or advice that you have for your grandchildren, Mia and Jack? And someday they're going to be a little old enough to listen to this. You know what I mean? They're going to listen back to this, and it's be kind of fun.
Right. Well, I hope they listen to it and get a laugh out of it, because it's how Grandpa Baker did it in his era. But I do, those two kids, Derek and Allie's children, are really lucky to have the grandparents, Marlene and I, but also maybe even more so the Myers people.
Yeah, Mike and Marcella.
Yeah, and
they're very fortunate.
And Derek's brother and sister-in-law.
Yeah.
I got lucky in getting into this whole damn family. Wow. They are just great. Just great.
It's more than luck. Yeah, how long have you and Marlene been married?
We have been married 1966, so I don't know, how does that even figure?
What's that, about 58?
58 years.
Man, congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything, how do you want your grandchildren to remember you? I
just want them to remember that Grandpa Baker was funny and he was nice to us. And I know he was nice because he used to give us candy when he wasn't supposed to.
That's a great memory, and I hope my grandchildren remember me like that too, Yeah. Wow.
And those kids, Jack, at a young age, he can be tough to handle, but he's a smart boy, and he's a
sweetheart.
He's a handsome kid.
Yeah.
And that little girl.
And Mia is what, 5 months? 5 months today, is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, and that's something, boy.
Oh, and she's lovely.
Yeah.
She's just lovely.
Yeah.
And so precious.
I opened up this show by saying that you gave the most amazing, emotional address to your daughter and to Derek, her husband, at the wedding. You did that without any notes, straight up, just looking at the crowd. I had to use notes at all three of our weddings, and I just think it was amazing. Like I told you, it was a very emotional moment for me because I've been to plenty of weddings, but what you said that day it resonates in my head.
Oh, thank you. That's very nice of you. I remember you coming up,
had to,
introducing yourself.
I couldn't say. You had to get
remember that.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll leave on that note there. Dave Grcevich, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thanks, Mark. You did a great job in bringing this all out of me.
It's a lot of fun. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank Dave Grcevich for being my guest today on the Mark Goes Rogue podcast and sharing his life adventures with us, but most notably for his young grandchildren, Jack and Mia. Thanks to Allie and Derek Myers for arranging this interview and the wonderful outline they provided. Special thanks to Marlene Grcevich for watching over Dave during their 58 years of marriage. Dave had to be a handful. Original music by Bray. You can hear more of Bray at braymusic.com. This podcast was recorded on Saturday, November 30th, 2024 in Alameda, California. So until next time, everyone, this is Mark at the Mic, over and out.